I good? Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Katie. Most of you probably know me from the print lab upstairs. I thought I'd kind of start a little bit with my last year as an undergrad student with my work. A lot of you don't know what I started out from and how I got to where I am today because I did not go to undergrad here. But the first thing I thought I would do is to show some of my influences. So maybe as I'm looking through my work, you can kind of see where I grasp a lot of my ideas from. I think I have a nice variety of things that do influencing me, you know, ranging from some grunge-style watercolorists that are very contemporary to someone like Egon Schiele, who's like a foundation for drawing and painting for figurative works, and Leanne Shapton, who does similar work that I do as well with like illustrating these books that she has published. And then, you know, with Julia Margaret Cameron, who I think is an amazing photographer, and I like the works of her portraits, and I think that you can kind of see that in a lot of the portraiture work that I do. But I thought I would start out, I got my undergrad at Sam Houston State University, about 4.5 hours south of here. But these pieces here, I started out with a watercolor, and I did a 10-piece series. This is just a kind of fraction of it that I did. But this I really enjoyed doing it, and I think they were very successful. They were quite large watercolors, and I did them with friends of mine, and it really got me into wanting to do these kind of illustrative watercolor portraits and figures, and this was kind of the foundation of that. And then at the same time, I was taking a printmaking class. It was my fourth one, an independent study. So I took a lot of printmaking as an undergrad, and a lot of that has some foundations into a lot of the work that I do now. This was also the semester that I learned to do bookmaking and bookbinding, and my professor was a really great mentor for me, and she really inspired me to do a lot of different things with my work. And with these works, I did a lot of fairy tales and mythologies and kind of delving to the deeper meaning of what they actually were, you know, like the original Grimm's fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen and what they actually meant. So once I started here, it started out kind of lost, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with a lot of my work. And I think it showed with my first semester, and I think I had a great idea with a creatures book that I tried to make, but kind of failed in execution. But I'm retouching on that now, so that'll be later. But I knew I wanted to tell a story with my works, and all I kept thinking was my undergrad professor telling me, do stuff about what you know, and what do you know more about than yourself? So I kind of deflected inwards and started making these self-portrait books, which I have some of them up here, but don't touch them with greasy fingers, please. So I came up with these ideas of like different things about me and just kind of a way of expressing myself, because I'm not a writer and I'm not a musician and I don't do anything like that. So as a way to express myself, as kind of like these are some things that you should know before you should try to be my friend, because they're not going to change. But I did it originally in the spring. I had the general context, and then I didn't like the imagery, and I redid it this fall, so that's why it says both spring and fall. And I feel like this was a much better execution of it. I really liked the intimacy of doing these small hand-bound books, and you really kind of have to pick it up and flip it through it, and it's really one-on-one kind of intimate experience. And then I started getting towards a little bit more self-portraiture. I did a couple of them. And with this book, it was a little rough because I was concerned with how honest I should be. Should I be honest and people give me funny looks, or should I just kind of be more honest into the work? And this is just a selection. There's 32 images actually in the book itself. But it was the same thing with the other one. I started it in the spring, didn't like my first hash of it, so I redid it in the fall, and I feel like it's much better with the box that I made and the binding and everything like that. But eventually, after thinking about it, I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to be honest, and I feel like that makes the work more interesting when it's something that if it's about you and you're honest about it. So in thinking of these terms, I started talking to a lot of my friends, and I took a summer class, and I came up with this book, The Lies That I Tell Myself, which I talked with a lot of faculty and I've talked to friends, and I'm not the only one who has these weird quirks, and obviously, everybody's got something, lies that they tell themselves, or different things that they kind of just, oh, well, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to do this, but they don't actually do it, and it's very kind of contradictory to what you tell yourself. So this one was really fun for me to do. It was kind of like stepping out of a box to not just myself. I mean, it's easily relatable because it could be anyone who's saying them, because I'm sure at some point in time, you've told yourself at least one of these. And then this brings me to one of the two books that I'm currently working on, which I'm still waiting on paper through the office, and so I haven't quite started it, but I started working on some mock-ups, and I have general ideas what I do. But for the past few weeks, I've been going on my Tumblr, which if you don't know what Tumblr is, it's kind of like a social media website, had a baby with a blogging website. So it's full of like pop culture references and people just kind of being anonymous and being silly. So I've taken some of my favorite ones. I've screenshotted like over 50 different things. So it's going to be a nice thick book. And these are just some that I pulled off. But I plan on doing it pop-up style. So it's going to be an accordion book with some pop-ups working into it, depending on what is, portrayed in the words. So I'm really looking forward to making this. I'm really excited. And I really like the viewer interaction, and having it as a book and the pop-up I think would be really interesting. But also along these lines, I still really like doing this portraiture stuff. And so I was trying to figure out a way, because I did all these portraits just of different people, mostly with watercolor. And I really wanted to try and find a way to kind of converge the two together, because I like doing these portraits of different people or whoever. This is just a selection. I have like stacks of them in my studio. But so what I decided to do was to kind of merge the creatures book that I originally wanted to do, which is like an updated bestiary of magical and mythological creatures, because I mean you don't see that really very often anymore. Most like anthologies of mystical creatures are all like pretty dated, and it's all like the here be dragons kind of thing. So what I decided to do was kind of merge this like portraiture of these mythological creatures and make them also into a book. And what I've been doing with these, I've had some critiques from the faculty about having problems with like having all of the images stay around the same size and make sure they're juxtaposed on the page in the right position. So what I've done is I've started doing these sketches and then scanning them in and printing them back out scanning them into Photoshop and then sizing them to a right size, and then printing them back out and using tracing paper on the nice 300-pound watercolor paper that I like to use, and then painting them. And the werewolf one is the only one that's completely done. I've also started a unicorn one that's almost there. But I feel like this is a good way for me to kind of merge two things that I really like doing into one, and I can kind of fill both of those wants that I have to both do something kind of portraiture-esque and still create it in a book, because I really liked the idea of doing this sort of like mythological creatures book. But each image will have on the opposite page words that go with it. Some it's like a sort of updated bestiary. Like for instance, the mermaid one will say mermaids are incredibly social creatures, and nearly all of them are employed by social media websites such as Facebook to help maintain and promote them. With a steady salary of seawater and fresh fish, they have worked out a harmonious relationship. And each one of them kind of have this humorous kind of twist to update these mythological creatures. And for this one, I had a lot of talk with faculty about determining with the content versus the cover. And I went out and found this really fabulous paper that resembles leather. And I think it's kind of a little bit heavier weight, and I'm going to bind it with that, and I think it'll look pretty nice. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got, I think.